Howdy y'all, it's your old pal Tennille back with another Grimm's fairy tale. These are the original fairy tales and they're not for children. So this evening we're going to snuggle in. Let me get my specs. It's kind of a short tale this evening called The Three Spinsters. Okay, The Three Spinsters. There was once a girl who was lazy and would not spin, and her mother could not persuade her to do it, do what she could. At last the mother became angry and out of patience and gave her a good beating, so that she cried out very loudly. At that moment the queen was going by. As she heard the crying, she stopped and, going into the house, she asked why the mother was beating her daughter, so that everyone outside in the street could hear her cries. The woman was ashamed to tell of her daughter's laziness, so she said, "I cannot stop her from spinning. She is forever at it, and I am poor and cannot furnish her with flax enough." The queen answered, "I like nothing better than the sound of the spinning wheel, and I always feel happy when I hear it humming. Let me take your daughter with me to the castle. I have plenty of flax. She shall spin to her heart's content." The mother was only too glad of the offer, and the queen took the girl with her. When they reached the castle, the queen showed her 3 rooms, which were filled with the finest flax, as full as they could hold. "Now you can spin me this flax," said she, "and when you can show it me all done, you shall have my eldest son for a bridegroom. You may be poor, but I make nothing of that. Your industry is dowry enough." The girl was inwardly terrified, for she could not have spun the flax, even if she were to live to be 100 years old, and were to sit spinning at it every day of her life from morning to evening. And when she found herself alone, she began to weep, and she sat so for 3 days without putting her hand to it. And on the 3rd day the queen came, and when she saw that nothing had been done, she was much surprised. But the girl excused herself by saying that she'd not been able to begin because of the distress she was in at leaving her home and her mother. And this excuse contented the queen, who said, however, as she went away, "Tomorrow you must begin work." When the girl found herself alone again, she could not tell how to help herself or what to do, and in her perplexity she went and gazed out of the window. There she saw 3 women passing by. The first of them had a broad, flat foot. The second had a big underlip that hung down under her chin. And the third had a remarkably broad thumb. They all of them stopped in front of the window, and they called out to know what it was that the girl wanted. She told them all her need, and they promised her their help, saying, "Then will you invite us to your wedding and not be ashamed of us, and call us your cousins, and let us sit at your table? If you will promise us this, we will finish off all your flax spinning in a very short time." "With all my heart," answered the girl, "only come in now and begin at once." Then these same women came in, and she cleared a space in the first room for them to sit and carry on their spinning. The first one drew the thread out and moved the treadle that turned the wheel. The second moistened the thread. The third twisted it and rapped with her finger on the table. And as often as she rapped, a heap of yarn fell to the ground, and it was most beautifully spun. But the girl hid the 3 spinsters out of the queen's sight, and only showed her, as often as she came, the heaps of well-spun yarn. And there was no end to the praises that she received. When the first room was empty, they went on to the second, and then to the third, so that at last all was finished. Then the three women took their leave, saying to the girl, "Do not forget what you promised, and it will be all the better for you." So when the girl took the queen and showed her the empty rooms and the great heaps of yarn, the wedding was at once arranged, and the bridegroom rejoiced that he should have such a clever and diligent wife, and he praised her exceedingly. "I have 3 cousins," said the girl, "and as they have shown me a great deal of kindness, I would not wish to forget them. In my good fortune, may I be allowed to invite them to the wedding and ask them to sit at the table with us?" And the queen and the bridegroom said at once, "There's no reason against it." And so it was allowed. So when the feast began, in came the 3 spinsters, in strange guise. And the bride said, "Dear cousins, you are welcome." "Oh," said the bridegroom, "how come you have such dreadfully ugly cousins?" And then he went up to the first spinster and he said, "How is it that you have such a broad foot?" "With treading," answered she, "with treading." And then he went to the second and he said, "How is it that you have such a great and hanging lip?" She said, "With licking," answered she, "with licking." And then he asked the third, "How is it that you have such a broad thumb?" "With twisting thread," answered she, "with twisting thread." Then the bridegroom said that from that time forward his beautiful bride should never touch a spinning wheel. And so she escaped that tiresome flax spinning forever. So that was the 3 spinsters. I hope you enjoyed it. And in my next video, I'll present a discussion on this story. So I'd like to hear what you thought of it in the comments. And I'll see you for the next one. Y'all be sweet.